Hello, people of California. My name is Jaime Perez. Today we will be discussing and criticizing the reasoning of political media, specifically on the political media's position on the legalization of marijuana. Political media is one of four linkage institutions. Linkage institutions are what connect and allow people to give input to their government. Along with political media, linkage institutions also include candidates, elections, and interest groups. The role of political media is to distribute information about governmental issues and events. Political media does a very good job in educating people about politics. This causes people to create their own political beliefs and make their own political decisions. Though there is some media that could be biased towards certain governmental issues and topics, there is no doubt that political media plays a very important role in today's politics. I had the opportunity to analyze Bill O'Reilly, head anchor of the O'Reilly Factor from Fox News, and his position over marijuana legalization. The political ideology of Bill O'Reilly is definitely conservative, due to the fact that he registered as a member of the Republican Party in 1994, and also due to the fact that he is against marijuana legalization, which is typically an issue that is frowned upon by conservatives. Fox News has also had a lean towards the conservative side of politics, due to the fact that in 2009, Fox News engaged in a verbal conflict against the Obama administration, and also due to the fact that in 2006, UC Berkeley performed a study which found that there was a correlation between the presence of Fox News in cable markets and increases in Republican votes in those markets. This basically means that UC Berkeley found a correlation between the people who watch Fox News and Republican voters. Bill O'Reilly starts off his argument by talking about the anti-cigarette campaign that was launched in 1966 by the federal government, and he explains how this anti-cigarette campaign reduced the amount of smokers from 42% of adults in 1966 to 18% of adults today. Bill O'Reilly starts off his argument by including statistics about the anti-cigarette campaign launched in 1966. However, he fails to address any source. This not only decreases the reliability of his argument, but it is also an example of a logical fallacy called begging the question, in which the speaker fails to provide any evidence addressing his claim other than the claim itself. The fact that Bill O'Reilly is talking about cigarettes in a video about the legalization of marijuana is known as a red herring fallacy, in which the speaker talks about an irrelevant issue only to detract attention from the real issue at hand. O'Reilly then proceeds to claim that marijuana hurts your brain. He supports his argument by quoting a study done on the Journal of Neuroscience. This study was conducted on young people between the ages of 18 and 25 who smoked pot about 6 times a week on average. According to Bill O'Reilly, the study found that marijuana causes brain abnormalities, which directly affect motivation, emotion, and decision making. He states that since 20 million Americans are pot users, this cannot be a good thing for the country. By quoting a modern and reliable source like the Journal of Neuroscience, O'Reilly strengthens his argument since he includes expert opinions other than just his vague opinion. However, it would have further strengthened his argument if he had provided counterarguments and opposing viewpoints along with his study. Even though he strengthens his argument by including a study on the effects of marijuana, he then proceeds to weaken his argument by including statistics about a number of marijuana users in the country without addressing a source. In his last statement, he states, "Since 20 million Americans are pot users, this cannot be a good thing for the country." This statement not only fails to address a source, but it also includes a slippery slope fallacy, which is when a person asserts that some event must inevitably follow from another without any argument for the inevitability of the event in question. He states that because 20 million people are marijuana users, it affects 320 million, which is the whole country. The word choice that is used by Bill O'Reilly also shows his point of view toward marijuana. He often refers to marijuana as pot, which is a more derogatory term than marijuana. This choice of words shows that Bill O'Reilly is against marijuana, since he refers to marijuana with the less respectful term. Bill O'Reilly concludes his argument by generalizing marijuana users. He states they are selfish, and their need to flee reality supersedes other goals. He also states, once people make marijuana their priority, they change for the worse. Not only does he fail to include any evidence to support his claims, which weakens his argument, but he also includes a logical fallacy known as a hasty generalization, which is when one makes a hasty conclusion without considering all of the variables due to insufficient evidence. Not only is this a hasty generalization, but it is also an ad hominem fallacy. An ad hominem is when the speaker attacks the person rather than his argument. This weakens his argument because he is no longer referring to the marijuana issue, but to the marijuana users. Bill O'Reilly compares alcohol to marijuana by stating that most people can use booze and pot without much harm, but most cannot. He compares cigarettes to marijuana by bringing back the anti-cigarette campaign into his argument and claiming that there should be a campaign against marijuana just like there was for cigarettes. These comparisons are examples of false analogies, which is a logical fallacy in which a person compares two things that are like in some aspects but are different in other aspects. In this case, marijuana and cigarettes are not fair comparisons because marijuana has never killed anyone, unlike cigarettes have. The same goes with comparing alcohol and marijuana. This weakens his argument because it no longer focuses on the topic of marijuana, rather than it drifts off into irrelevant topics. As a result of all these logical fallacies, Bill O'Reilly weakens his argument by distracting from the real point of his argument. The fallacies also leave much room in his argument for opposing viewpoints to argue against him, since he did not refer to any counter-arguments throughout his whole argument. Although Bill O'Reilly had some strong points in his argument, I believe that he could have definitely had a stronger argument if he at least addressed the opposing viewpoints. For my next source, I had the opportunity to analyze Dr. Sanjay Gupta, CNN's chief medical correspondent, and his point of view on the legalization of marijuana. Not only is Dr. Sanjay Gupta CNN's chief medical correspondent, but Dr. Sanjay Gupta is a professional neurosurgeon with over 15 years of experience in the field of medicine. The political ideology of this source is moderate, because Dr. Sanjay Gupta argues with a medical point of view on the subject. He supports the medical side of marijuana, however, he does not feel very sure about the recreational side of marijuana. Dr. Gupta begins his argument by claiming that most of the information on the medical journals about marijuana talk about the harm of marijuana. He states that less than 6% of the information regarding marijuana talks about the benefits of marijuana. He states, and I quote, "So when you look at all these studies in aggregate, you would think that there is a distorted picture. You would think that there was a lot more harm with marijuana than potential benefit." Dr. Gupta begins with a strong argument by addressing the opposing viewpoint first, although it would have further strengthened his argument if he would have linked the medical journals and statistics he talks about to a specific source. Dr. Gupta then proceeds to counter the opposing viewpoint by talking about laboratories outside of the United States that he visited and hearing testimonies of patients for whom not only did marijuana work, but it was the only thing that worked. This counter towards the opposing viewpoint on marijuana strengthens his own argument, because he logically shows why his argument is stronger than the other. Although, again, he fails to provide a source for the laboratories he visited and the testimonials of patients who use marijuana as medicine. He could have improved his argument if he included an actual testimony of a patient for whom marijuana worked to increase the reliability of his information. Dr. Gupta then counters another opposing viewpoint. He brings up the DEA's scheduling policy. He claims that the DEA schedules marijuana as a Schedule I substance, meaning that it is categorized as one of the most dangerous drugs out there. Dr. Gupta then states, "When I looked carefully at that, I found that there was really no scientific evidence to say that it was dangerous, that it had high abuse potential, and that it had no medical applications. I believe that it does have medical applications." Dr. Gupta includes another counterargument into his own argument, which strengthens his argument on marijuana, although this counterargument was very weak, due to the fact that he fails to include examples in research to show that marijuana has medical applications. Not only does this weaken his own argument, but it also shows an example of a logical fallacy called begging the question. He included a claim, but no evidence to support his claim other than the claim itself. Later on in the interview, Dr. Gupta is asked about a statement that he made on one of his articles, where he states that marijuana is even more effective than various pharmaceutical drugs. Dr. Gupta replies by claiming that people can develop tolerance to pharmaceutical drugs, which is why marijuana works better than narcotics. Dr. Gupta also states that marijuana is much safer than narcotic drugs, due to the fact that there is an accidental overdose of narcotic drugs every 19 minutes in this country. Whereas with marijuana, Dr. Gupta states, and I quote, I couldn't find a single confirmed overdose death. Here, Dr. Gupta includes another counterargument against pharmaceutical drugs and how marijuana works better than these drugs. Even though it was a strong argument that included statistics and research, he fails to link these statistics and research to a particular source. This failure to address a source decreases the reliability of the source and further weakens his argument, since we do not know where he got his information from. Dr. Gupta concludes his argument by explaining his stance on the use of marijuana. He is asked about his stance on the recreational side of marijuana. He responds, "Well, I do make a distinction between these things. I really am approaching the medical marijuana angle of this in many ways because I've seen so many legitimate patients with legitimate problems not able to get the treatment they needed. But so I do make a distinction. I'm concerned about it as far as its use for young people, people with a developing brain still up to ages mid-20s." This response reflects Dr. Gupta's point of view on the issue of marijuana, but it is also a very weak response, since he does not explain why he is concerned about the use of marijuana with young people. Although I agreed with Dr. Gupta on many strong points throughout his argument, I also think that he could have had a much stronger argument if he had included sources for statistics and gave examples of the testimonials he talked about so much throughout his whole argument. For my third source, I had the opportunity to analyze Mary Catherine Ham on her debate against Bill O'Reilly on the O'Reilly Factor on Fox News, and her point of view and arguments over the legalization of marijuana. The political ideology of this source is liberal, because Mary Catherine Ham argues with the liberal perspective on the issue. Mary Catherine Ham is an American journalist. She is the editor-at-large of Hot Air and a contributing editor to the Town Hall magazine. She is also a Fox News Channel contributor. Ham begins her argument by claiming that as a country we spend hundreds of billions of dollars since the DEA was formed on fighting the drug war. She states, "We incarcerate many people, we arrest 1.5 million, 48% of them marijuana convictions, and the majority of those for possession only." She continues on and says that people look at these statistics and do not think that the costs outweigh the benefits. Her failure to address the source for these statistics weaken her argument, and also include a couple of logical fallacies, one of them being begging the question, in which she includes a claim but no evidence for the claim. She also includes a hasty generalization in this statement. She states, "People look at this and do not think that the costs outweigh the benefits." She assumes that everyone thinks that the costs do not outweigh the benefits. These fallacies decrease the strength of her argument because they show her lack of information on the issue of marijuana. Later on in the debate, Bill O'Reilly retaliates by claiming that marijuana affects children now more than ever, since children think that it is more socially acceptable to smoke marijuana than ever before in history. He attacks Mary Catherine by asking her if she would want to see her child smoking marijuana at the age of 15. Ham responds by claiming that she would not want to see her child smoking marijuana at age 15, but that she would also not want to see her child drinking alcohol or having a tattoo at age 15. She states that these are things that are illegal for children, just like marijuana is. This is a very strong point that counters O'Reilly's argument on the marijuana issue. It not only strengthens her argument, but weakens the opposing viewpoint, since she shows that the opposing argument was invalid. Mary Catherine Ham concludes her argument by stating that marijuana is just as illegal now as it was before for children, and that Colorado has not fallen apart in 10 years of medical marijuana use. This statement not only fails to link her evidence to a source, but it also includes a logical fallacy known as non sequitur, or does not follow fallacy, where she includes completely irrelevant information that does not follow her main argument. This weakens her argument because by bringing in medical marijuana out of nowhere, she distracts from her main idea and focuses on an irrelevant topic. Mary Catherine Ham's use of word choice reflects her position on the topic. If we compare the word choice used by Bill O'Reilly to Mary Catherine Ham's, we are able to notice the differentiating points of view between the both of them. As Bill O'Reilly constantly refers to marijuana as pot, Ham constantly refers to the drug as marijuana. The fact that O'Reilly refers to marijuana as pot shows his lack of respect towards marijuana, as pot has a more negative connotation, that of marijuana. On the other hand, Ham refers to the drug as its typical name, showing more respect than Bill O'Reilly towards the drug. I believe that Mary Catherine Ham had a very strong argument against Bill O'Reilly, due to the fact that she addressed the opposing viewpoints and countered them with her arguments. She could have definitely had a stronger argument if she had linked her evidence to sources to show more reliability in her argument. According to my political beliefs, I believe that Dr. Sanjay Gupta's point of view resonated with me the most. Not that I agreed with him on every point he presented, but because I agreed with him on his main argument that marijuana does indeed work better and is much safer than many narcotic drugs out there. I feel that I resonate a lot more with the Democratic Party because I share many common beliefs with the Democratic Party, but I would much rather not identify with any political party due to my habit of keeping an open mind. I can best use the four linkage institutions to stay informed about modern politics, create my own political beliefs with the information I obtain, and from there make my own political decisions. I believe that marijuana should be legalized for medical purposes, due to the fact that marijuana works much better than various types of medicines out there. And not only does it work better, but marijuana is also much safer. This has been Jaime Perez. Thank you for watching.